On me. There we go. Now I got our mics, and now I got your mics. There we go. Sean, say hi.
Hi.
Perfect. There we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Last of Us Post Show for episode 6, entitled Kin. My name's Matt, and I'll be your driver for this car rides events. I'm joined, as always, by the Supreme Court of Canada himself, Mr. Court Lalonde. What's up, Court?
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
I don't know, got a little bit of throat thing going on. But otherwise, I'm fine.
Was it because you were choked up after this last episode of The Last of Us?
No, I learned something as you get older. If you spend a weekend in a hockey rink, a lot of the coaches were eating those Ricola things, and I was like, "What do you eat those for?" They're like, "Oh, you get the dry throat." Oh, my throat is just
Your throat
achy.
is nice and dry right now. All right, I feel you. Coming back to the show, we have a panel of amazing people here joining us today. Returning, we have the $2 hero himself, Mr. Seth. What's up, Seth?
Hey, man. Good to be back. It's been a couple weeks. I'm happy to be back. I was thinking, as you said, entitled kin. I was like, that just sounds like you have like a real jerk of like a brother or sister or something. I have some entitled kin.
Well, in this episode, that kind of does fall exactly in the space that we wanted to. And returning, the pants man himself, Mr. Sean Capri. What's up, Sean?
Happy to be here. Hi. Hello. Hi.
Happy that you're here. Of course, on this week, we're talking about episode 6. Like I said, called Kin. We are going to be spoiling the entirety of this episode. So if you haven't watched it yet, stop here, put on pause, go watch the episode, come back. We'll be here waiting for you. I hope you're back now. All right. But yeah, we're going to be spoiling everything. So strap in, get excited. This is your final spoiler warning, because off we go. Of course, episode 6, after the finale of Henry and Sam's arc last week, we catch back up 3 months later with 2 fantastic new characters. I loved the entirety of this scene. Court, how did you feel? We called it last week. We said that this was probably going to kick things off with those 2 characters, and here we are, right again. How did you feel about that scene? What did you like and what did you didn't? Is there anything you didn't like?
Well, this episode. Sorry. This episode is it had a lot going on it. The one thing I really like is the White Rabbits, how they keyed in on it, because we know, as some people that have played the game, what that signifies, and it was kind of, and also in literature itself, the White Rabbit is in a lot of things.
Alice in Wonderland.
And I really thought it was they did a good job. I think the writing, I can't remember the gentleman's name who wrote Chernobyl, and working with Neil Druckmann, I really like what they've done with this story. And especially in this episode, how they keyed so much in on stuff that we never really got answers for, first of all, in the game itself. And second of all, we know a lot of it will lead. I felt like we got The Last of Us Part 2 in this episode a lot. Like I just felt like every 2 seconds I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But I also felt like they put together a lot of things. We didn't, once again, they didn't really they followed the game story, but didn't do it the way we did it in the game, but did it so well.
I know.
Like it was so weird. I was like, oh, that's not how it happened in the game. Like, oh my God, I think I like it better this way. Like I just, that was my take from this episode. And then I think this was the one episode that hit home the most. When Joel had his panic attack, my wife was like, oh, he's having a heart attack. I'm like, no, he's not. Like instantly, I even put up the tweet. I was joking. I put the Leonardo DiCaprio thing. Like, everybody who has anxiety issues when they watch that episode.
Yep.
Big time.
They humanized Joel more than the game ever did. And it made me like him more. And it also made me like, oh man, there's a lot of things gonna happen. And I really like Joel. I really connected with him the most I ever have with this character, that I've really enjoyed my years of playing the game, reading the comics. I really, really, really thought Joel became more of a human and someone more I liked.
Yeah.
When he breaks down and has that conversation, it hurt. It touched me. Like, it was a lot to deal with.
Yeah, they really do a lot with Joel in this episode. And like you mentioned, we get a lot more part 2, because like in the game, I don't think this episode would have been as engaging if you were just running around fixing a dam, because we actually go to Jackson. We actually spend time in places that, they weren't able to go in the first game. Sean, what did you think of this episode?
what is there to say that hasn't already been said about every single episode up until this point?
Doesn't miss.
It's been phenomenal. Every change, like I don't know. I know that there are some people who are not enjoying every single change, and I am here to tell you I am enjoying pretty much every single one. I'm hard pressed to think of something that they have altered for the screen that is different from the game that I have not appreciated at the very least. And this, like even just the opening of it, just the people that they meet, I think is really interesting. And things when they see the dam and it's like, oh, this is different already. And I couldn't contain myself. I think a lot of us who are watching this with anyone who hasn't, played the game, you can't help yourself but go like, ooh, this is the second game. This is where Sony had E3 and the flute guy is next door. Like if you just go over, Sean Layden's just finishing a conference, and then right next door is flute guy, and then Sid Schumann and Ryan Clements are just outside. It's very cool. And then we all look at Dina, and then I'm sure we'll get to all of this stuff. But it was a fan service filled episode, but also just serve to move things forward and move things along. It's not like we need to see every single step of their journey. We got to kind of see their relationship progress here. And the notion of these panic attacks, I think, serve well to something that I thought was not going to happen, even though it has to happen, which is Joel wanting to give up Ellie.
Yep.
And I started the episode, I'm like, he's not going to do it. Like, that's not what this is going to be, even though I know the scene is going to happen. Like I was still misdirected here a little bit. And that seems to happen with every episode. That's why I'm appreciating some of these changes. Now, ultimately, yeah, like that's what ends up happening. And he tries to, at least for a brief moment, go like she's better off. But I feel like in the game, it was less about that Ellie would actually be better off with Tommy. It was more just like, I'm good. I've done my part. I'm gonna hand her off, and this is different. The motivation for him to hand her off to Tommy is way different, and I feel better. Maybe this is what you're talking about, like humanizing him a little bit. It's less of a like he's so far gone from the deal. Now he's keeping his word to a dying wish, and he wants to keep Ellie safe, and he's realizing that he can't do it. Like that seems subtle. It seems like just a note on a page, but it comes off so much differently. So I, once again, just have so much appreciation for this episode.
When he has the second panic attack, he sees Sarah in his mind.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a very big Sarah episode. I don't want to know about Tommy's wife's son, who was only 3. I don't need that story. I don't need to know anything about that. That was like, oh my God, I looked at the dates and I'm like, ooh, I don't like those numbers. But this was a Sarah episode, and this was Joel once again realizing, because there's a scene where they're sitting there when Joel first meets Tommy's wife, and they're having the conversation, and Joel and Ellie act more like a father and daughter than I've ever seen on this show, because they're cracking jokes, and she's like, oh, come on. Like there was a lot of body language and the way they were speaking that was father-daughter more than ever have they ever done on this show. Like it was the most Joel had zero boundaries, zero board. He was out there for everybody to see throughout the episode.
100%. And they keep playing with us, and they keep twisting the way that things happen in the game ever so slightly to make it a much more digestible way, interpretation of the way that the story is told, because nothing about what happens in a lot of these episodes necessarily completely contradicts the game. It's like filling in the spaces in between. Seth, as someone who I think you would probably be the person who played the game the longest to go comparatively to the rest of the panel here, how has this episode been for you, coming back to it in a way that, again, does it kind of line up with the way that you remember things, or how are you at with the episodes?
Yeah, I definitely, and I'm also, I think, the only person here who hasn't played part 2.
Yep.
So
the better
I'm
one.
not. Yeah. Well,
Hold
I
on,
guess so,
just
right?
get him off the show. Like I don't even understand. This is pointless.
You're better for it. You're better for it. Just play the first one. That's all you need.
I want to play it. It came out at the wrong time. But so anyways, I don't, I know enough about part 2 to sort of pick up this stuff, to recognize like the locations and to recognize the character that I think is hinted at in here, as Sean mentioned. But yeah, coming into this, like you do have those touchstones. There are things about this game that are burned into my brain. There are things like the dam, where just like you instantly recognize these moments, you know, regardless of how long ago you've played it. And I think that like this episode for me was my favorite. Like the Bill and Frank episode 3 is a little bit of an anomaly. It's kind of existing like outside of everything else a little bit. Aside from that, this is my favorite, I would say, like standard episode of the show so far, because the thing that I feel like I've heard a lot of people sort of complaining about as the show has gone on is, where's all the Joel and Ellie? Like, why am I not seeing enough of their relationship sort of growing and stuff? And I feel like this was the episode where finally, like, it really happens. Like, it really does like crescendo, and now it's like, finally, no, like, this is where we're at, this is where this relationship is, and we have that sort of like point of order, which makes the way we all knew the episode was going to end, it makes it hit even harder, because like we knew that was coming as people who've played the game, but like finally we're kind of seeing this relationship blossom, and it kind of gets, you know, well, not taken away, but it gets like the brakes halted on it really abruptly there at the end, right? And I thought that was really beautiful. I loved that moment, dude, where Joel has that second panic attack and he sees the woman there that he thinks, for the briefest of moments, he like convinces himself that that could even be a possibility. Like there's like hope on his face for a second. And not only that, but he sees her with like her daughter presumably walking up to her, and Sarah would be of the age where she could have kids.
That could be a
in a
granddaughter.
normal world.
Yep.
Right? That could be his granddaughter. And you just feel the weight of all of that on his face. I agree with Court. Like, this was when I really like I really kind of came around to Joel in this episode. I was like, wow, like this is when Pedro Pascal like really took hold of Joel for me.
I'm with you entirely. Like they keep like we got plenty of Joel and Ellie in this episode, and ways that like we finally see the walls come down, right? They're riding on the horseback, she hugs him and like kind of puts her face on his back. There were so many more touchstones, and I think Court, you nailed it when you said they're much more physical in their interactions in this episode in a way that would reflect a father and a daughter, right? They're much more comfortable now. Part of the reason why we got that 3-month time skip. And like we've touched on this a few times, but like my expectations based on playing the game keep being messed with. We talked about it last episode with, you know, the blood hand on, you know, Sam's bite. And it happened again here with the panic attacks, because I was kind of like, could they be setting up a potential heart attack instead of, you know, what happens at the end of the episode? Could they be getting ready to take us in a different direction? You know what I mean? There's certain points that they're just showing you just enough to be like, but maybe. And every time the end result ends up being the same, but those little bits of hope, those little bits of being like, but maybe, they're brilliant all the way throughout. And of course, I think like we have to, because I know this is going to, you know, take up a chunk of our conversation, is the conversation, one of the most definitive, the most memorable, the biggest moments in the entirety of the first game, is their showdown in the bedroom, right? When Joel comes to talk to Ellie to say that she's going with Tommy. And, you know, I've listened to the podcast with Craig, Neil, and Troy, and they talked a lot about emotional action in the place of physical action, right? The blows and the fighting, the fist fights come through their words rather than having like a massive action set piece, and you could feel it. Court, I know how important that scene is to you. How do you feel seeing it translated to screen?
I can't, but so this is the one scene where I still feel the game, it was more powerful for me.
Okay.
But I felt what happened after it made that scene even better. Like what happens after it in the game is just like, okay, they move on. But showing Ellie the next morning just sitting there by herself, dejected and looking hopeless, even though she's gonna go with Tommy, she doesn't want to go. And then when she goes down there and sees Joel, she's like a kid seeing the Christmas tree filled up on Christmas morning. Like she looks so elated to see Joel at that horse. And then when Joel says what he says, it takes her a whole 2 seconds to hand him her bag. And he's like, no.
Yeah, it's instant.
Because this episode was the episode, obviously in those 3 months, but this was the episode that I felt Ellie wasn't being so protective of her past and who she is to Joel. and not making a like what I do sometimes when I'm in an awkward situation, I make jokes about everything. Ellie wasn't always doing that around Joel throughout this episode. And so then when Joel has that speech, she's crushed.
Mhm.
Like absolutely crushed. When we're in the game, she's crushed before Joel even comes in. She looked more angry in the room as she's reading the diary than compared to what the game is. I still think both scenes are extremely powerful, but I think what I took from this is that scene was a bit longer in the TV show to get the energy that I felt in the game. Because in the game, like she runs away. We don't have that. We don't have her already projecting her energy
Mhm.
somewhere else. But in this, we just have her sitting there. We know is because we played the game what she's thinking. But
Mhm.
everybody watching the TV show, like I always get to ask my wife, who's never played the game, knows nothing about this. She didn't find that scene as powerful. She found after it more powerful, which is
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, especially because again, the way that they set those things up. Sean, I know again, like we spoke last week about how they keep, like we said, they keep messing with things ever so slightly. They're playing with their expectations. Did you expect the scene to play out the same, and how did it land for you?
Honestly, I think I'm a little bit with Court, and I'm glad
Okay.
that he went first because you articulated it better than I would have been able to kind of dissect this thing here. This was one where, and maybe this is why I'm enjoying the changes so much, that it was beat for beat a reenactment of the game. Like that
Yep.
scene, the even the shout out to the little Easter egg of the giraffe on the side. Like everything is there. The sweater is the same.
The bedroom,
The
wall
window,
color,
like
yeah.
it's all there, and I should love it. And it's like it of all the things, and maybe it's just because I've built it up so much in my mind this moment that it felt performative, whereas the rest of it just feels like I'm really in the world. And yeah, this one, like it still got me. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like it didn't, but it was bigger in the game. And also, I think it's weird because we've spent many hours watching this series so far, and yet that still felt rushed to me a little bit, in that like it kind of went like, okay, they're pissed at each other, they have this moment that was such a huge one in the game, and then no, Joel changed his mind, and then she goes with him, and that's all great, and it's wonderful how like their relationship is strong enough. I felt like this episode is more about like their relationship being tested, probably for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe in the most important way, like which will kind of set their path forward. Now there's no going back. Now they all understand like who's on what side. But yeah, it just felt like maybe a little bit rushed. The running away, not being here, maybe took part of that, but also the way that the show has dedicated most of the time to a lot of people's complaints. It hasn't been a lot of Joel and Ellie, so it hasn't really it didn't really like get earned, I don't think, like it had in the game. But still, was I weeping like a sad little man? Yeah, of course, because I'm remembering it in the game. But I'm so curious to know from people who maybe don't remember this moment. I don't know how you can, but certainly the people who didn't play the game and they don't know all the other beats. It's this whole like we'll always have like we read the book before the movie was made,
Right.
so it's we know all the intricacies. But yeah, that scene, performance wise, perfect. Beat for beat, it's all great. The inflections from Bella Ramsey, it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of, as long as that, those are my thoughts on that scene in particular, I think.
So let me ask you this, Sean, because again, something that we spoke to last week was the motivation for Joel trying to get rid of Ellie, right? We spoke last week about like, is it going to hit the same? Because I remember you having some reservations about them being like, almost like retroactively taking away from what we got last week. How did you feel about the conversation that Joel had with Tommy and how that ended up playing out in that scene, one leading into another?
And that's the thing that, I think that they did serve well. I thought like all of it, Tommy, Maria, like it's all the fact that the town is there, the fact that even though Joel and Tommy are very happy to see each other, they can still be like driven apart by pretty fundamental kind of life decisions that they're making. Of course, being kind of mean to each other about it. Communism. That was amazing. I was like,
That was incredible.
Son of a gun. Yeah, it's a commune. Damn. Okay. Yeah, it's just two conflicting interests in such fundamental ways, but ultimately Joel does get the best of Tommy, at least for a moment, and he has him doing what he needs him to do, And so that's interesting in and of itself. But yeah, I think it's just as far as like that scene goes, didn't really hit, but everything else around it is great. So it doesn't collapse the episode. Certainly, it's just a comparison. And this is where we're elitist of I played the game and it was better, so it's like whatever, man. Like it was all good.
And that's the thing, for it being such a memorable scene, like it does stay with people. Seth, I'm curious to know from you, because I know that we've already referenced the fact that you haven't played part 2, but you've seen parts of it. How was it watching this episode, knowing, and I feel like you knew as you were going through it, you're getting glimpses, you're getting pieces. Is there anything that you kind of like stood out to you? Anything that you kind of, while you were watching, or even back to that scene specifically, how did you feel, kind of going through it?
For sure. Yeah. Well, and regarding that scene, I think maybe I'm the detractor here. Because I felt like in the show that scene with Joel and Ellie was actually quite a bit more real feeling to me.
Okay.
Because it wasn't like marinated on so much. That's not the way these kinds of conversation happen in real life. They boil and they explode, and it's not this polished thing like you get in a video game where they can literally sit there and do a million takes of Troy Baker and he can deliver it exactly the way they want it to, and we can hang on that camera exactly as long as it, and it all feels fine because they've orchestrated everything perfectly to make sense in the game. Here, it feels like real life. And here, it was interesting to me the way that they set this up narratively was, Ellie is getting her haircut by Maria, and that's where she learns about Sarah, right? And then like they have that explosive moment, and to me it made it more powerful when Joel says you have no idea what loss is. And we know that yes she does, and Ellie knows that yes she does. And what you realize in that moment is that these two people have been together but they don't understand each other.
True.
There's a lot that neither one of them know about each other, right? They don't know core fundamental parts of each other's being, and that is loss. They don't know what each other has lost. And I think that when that explodes and then simmers down, and Joel presumably goes home and like sleeps on it, right? And then he wakes up, and that's when he's like, you know what? No, like she deserves that choice, And to me, it reminded me, like, I'm a child of divorce, and it reminded me of when my parents got divorced. Like, at a certain point, they're like, well, you get to choose, like, who do you want to stay with, kind of thing, And it is just that instant, because she's already done all these mental gymnastics in her head. She's like, no matter what, I'm here with him in that moment. That conversation they have is necessary, right? Like if they never have that conversation, they never reach that point in their relationship. There has to be a little bit of a brawl going on, for them to get that strength together, and I thought it was handled really well. Not that I'm like one's better than the other, but it was a totally different flavor. And I love that we hang on Ellie's face for like just a little bit longer, and just Bella Ramsey, just like that kind of expression on her face. You can just feel everything on it. It was really powerful to me.
I'm waiting for us to have that moment, Seth. We haven't exploded at each other yet.
No,
Court and I,
not yet.
weekly, but
Wow,
like not yet.
Wow. Jesus, I sent you a
That's how it
giraffe
happens.
text. That's all I sent you.
Just I'm not, just sometimes we're brothers. It's Court. It's a good thing. Don't take it like
how
that,
it
you son of a
happens.
gun.
Kidding.
We'll have a talk.
See,
You know what I
now-
mean?
now-
See,
now-
now he did it. Now he did
now-
it. Mm-hmm.
That was it. It just
But Seth,
Twist.
I thought of what you said. In the game, the energy came out of Ellie, the anger
Right.
from her, and that's what sparked the conversation. In this, the energy came from Joel pretty much becoming a puddle in front of his brother. So the energy was different where they brought it into it, and maybe that's just where I see it differently. But you know what? All in all, like as Sean, I think Sean said it, the show's just been amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
like
this
we're
is
really
the-
splitting hairs
Yeah,
here. I think
like,
it's not like I
I'm-
looked at that and went like, that's not how it's supposed to go.
Like
Not
I
even a
keep
little
saying to
bit.
my wife, all I want this to do is come to Ultra Blu-ray DVD so
Yep.
I can
Yeah.
buy it to get all the director's cut of this, because I need it all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think where we'll go for kind of our final major question before we start talking about future spoilers in part 2, because we are going to get into that. But obviously the ending of the episode, Joel and Ellie, they get over their stuff, they head out together, they get to the university, and of course there's a lot. I'm seeing some comments online talking about how this section wasn't long enough, that there wasn't enough of a fight, blah 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 blah. Like in the game, this is pretty much like similarly beat for beat. Yes, it's longer in the game, but again, I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't have Joel's injury play out the same way that it did in the game. Because in the game, obviously, like, they're fighting, they're up on the second floor, they fall off, and Joel gets like impaled on like, on like a pipe, an exposed pipe, and then essentially everything that plays out after. I understand why they didn't do that, though, because again, I think that's a much more mortal wound in the more realistic kind of world of The Last of Us that we have on the show. So they needed something else. He gets stabbed. We know things are going down, and then everything it looks like Joel dies and then of course my entire family's looking at me like, does he die? I'm like, I don't know. Watch next week. But of course
we won't get an answer next week.
I know we won't, but still, well, we might.
Yeah, I don't think
But we're obviously we end on that moment. And again, how did that make you feel, Court? I'm going to throw to you first. Like, are you happy with the changes? Are you okay with the way that they did things? How do you feel about that scene?
I felt it was a little rushed because of where I was looking at the episode, and I was like, okay, they have to do this. I love the fact that they had the monkeys, though. I love the fact that we had the entrance into walking in. But I also look at it as a different perspective. In a video game, they have to have the action and the fighting scene that happens. I actually really enjoy that in the show, that they haven't done that as much, and they focus more on the characters and having the conversation. And with regards to how Joel gets impaled and how he gets injured, I truly, truly believe it has a lot to do with budget. That would have been a lot more of a set going on the inside of there, and that's a lot of money to do everything, to do all that scene with all the action. And this still gets the message across, because they did make a comment. I've read a lot about how they budgeted for this, and they didn't put as much. They put budget into the making of the show, but they decided to put a lot of it towards the actors. And you can actually tell that in little things here and there.
And then they filmed it in Canada.
Yep.
Super cheap. Yeah.
Alberta.
A lot of shows do that in their first season. They film in Canada, and then they'll film somewhere else after the fact. And if I was you, Sean, I'd be getting in a car and doing a family road trip to do all the scenes and go and see where everything is. Let's just be real.
Yep.
You don't live far.
Come on, Sean.
That's true. We have a horse.
But I didn't mind it because my wife didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like I keep saying, I keep looking it through her eyes. Instead of being the person that played the video game and knows everything that's about to happen, she's like, oh my God, he's dead. He's dead, right? He's dead, right? And I just kept looking at her, and she's like, I hate you. I'm like, yeah, I know you do. Like, we're married. I get that. But like, come on now. Like, she just kept asking the question. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. And she's like, well, we'll find out next week. I'm like, I don't think we will. And she was like, well, then he's dead. I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell you. And that's when I knew that the scene worked. Because she was, oh my God.
Not only does the scene work, but the show works. Everyone, I think I was talking to my parents about it, and it's just like, we don't have a lot that we're like, talking for 45 minutes straight, but they're like, so The Last of Us. I'm like, all right, here we go. We are talking about it. By the way, my mom was like, are you calling him Joel? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, I thought it was Joe this whole time. So like, we talk about like having a completely different perspective on this. But like, the fact remains that if you don't know what's happening, all you do know is that everyone is expendable. Anyone can die. Everyone has died. You get close to this person, gone. And anybody who's like watched Game of Thrones or anything like that, like you kind of know what you're in for. So I felt like the timing of this, it had to slam at the end, and it had to hit in that way. So I think it did well, and it kind of cashed in on a lot of drama capital that it had built up basically up until this point, where you go like, maybe that's how this could go down. And dude, like I thought he was dead in the game too.
Right?
I thought he was I thought he was
100%.
dead. And again, I know we're spoiling everything here. It sounds weird to just kind of go like, he's in the game. You start playing as Ellie for the first time.
And we're about to have one of the most powerful scenes in the video game happen in the next 2 episodes. Like, oh my geez.
Right. Well, and the fact that I can see how maybe this might play out, and this might be getting into your point, Matt, like about what's next, is you do wonder if you don't see Joel up and at him like right away, it feeds into that uncertainty that maybe he doesn't make this. But also, why did he pull it out? You don't pull it out. You leave it in there.
You put it in further.
He should know that.
Keep that for later. Inventory.
He should know that. He was in Desert Storm or whatever.
Yeah, no.
That was Tommy. That was Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy was the
Well,
bad.
I think, Matt, I think you might be right. I think it might be the very end of the episode. We'll have her in the garage with
No, dude.
no, you don't think so?
I think we're starting with the rabbit. I think it's gonna
But
play out.
we get Left Behind next week.
I
It's
know.
Left Behind. Like the episode's
Yeah,
called
I could
Left
see
Yeah,
Behind.
her.
no, but it's gonna
yeah.
start with her
Mhm.
in winter by herself with the rabbit.
Oh,
Just because, like,
I
it's
think they
the
did the
game.
rabbit.
I think they're gonna play it out almost exactly the same. They're gonna show her on her own, and we're gonna start getting the flashbacks, but we're still gonna have present day Ellie that we are gonna find
No,
out.
she's gonna be
I don't
hunting a
think-
deer.
I don't
She's
think
gonna
I'm
hunt a
gonna be able
deer.
to-
Yeah,
like,
but she takes
I
that
don't
rabbit
think-
out first.
After playing the remake and the David scene, I don't know if like it's
Yeah,
like,
we're
I'll
in
talk about
for it, man.
having a scene better than what it's like in the video game. That is going to be the best acting Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey are ever going to do, because there's no words.
Yep.
That scene is 0 words. I can't
We're
like
in for
I
some
like
dark stuff, man.
it's
Holy
gonna be
cow.
The next
oh my
3 is
God.
gonna be a run. Seth, tell me how you felt about the end of the episode.
Yeah, I think it's well, so if when people get stabbed in real life, right? That's how it is. It's quick and by the way, I almost felt like it was an accident. Like in the struggle.
Yeah,
I
I
almost
agree.
feel like the guy
True.
didn't even intend maybe to do it, because he goes to take the swing, the bat breaks, right? And then there's a struggle, and when that adrenaline is going, you literally don't even feel yourself getting stabbed,
Mhm.
right? And I've been around somebody who has been stabbed, and the first thing they went to do was go to pull it out, right?
Right.
And that is your human reaction. Is yeah, I know, it's yeah.
I think you
wanna
caught all of
take
us
it out?
a little bit off guard there, buddy.
Yeah,
Go
I
on,
know,
sorry,
I
I don't
know.
mean to laugh.
It's a real story.
So we're
I
having a
can tell it some other
conversation after
time.
this show, right? We're just
Look,
yeah,
I'll tell you all another time. But the first thing they went to do was go to pull it out,
Mhm.
and
Daddy
I think it's
Sturgill
just
over here.
it's just your yeah, it's your human reaction. Is I have this thing in me and it needs to come out,
Mhm.
and so that landed totally fine for me. My thought was that I wonder. There's a little bit of foreshadowing, I feel like, in the beginning of the episode, because they had the dude hunting the rabbit with the bow and arrow,
Mhm.
right? And they didn't he could have hunted those rabbits with anything, right?
Graham
But
Greene
we
also
know-
one of the best Canadian actors of all time.
Yep.
Let's just
Yeah,
be
we
real.
all saw it. Yep.
Mhm.
Like, it's so good. So good.
and I totally feel like that was like intentional foreshadowing.
Yep.
To the point where I was like, I sort of agree with you. I feel like the next episode will open like kind of making us feel the same way the opening of this one did,
Mhm.
right? So that was.
Can we
that was
talk
my
how
kind
those
of thought.
bunnies did not look like bunnies? They look like
No.
dead cats hanging up
Yeah,
there. They look terrible.
They were
I was
huge.
wondering-
They
They,
were.
they were terrible. I
There's
don't know.
some big
It bothered me. It was like the only thing that bothered me about the episode. My wife's like, "Are those bunnies?" I'm like, "They're definitely bunnies, but they kind of look like
Supposed to
stuffed
be
animals.
bunnies.
They
Yeah.
look like dead stuffed animals."
They
sitting
looked.
up on the thing.
They looked weird. But yeah, no. So going into next week, and again, I'm saving the quick part 2 conversation for the very, very end, so people can turn it off if they don't
Okay.
want to. But going into next week, we're obviously getting left behind. So we seem to be of a couple different minds here, split between are we going to see Joel at all or are we not? Because in my mind, I think it's going to play out pretty similarly. I think we're going to start to see David. I don't think you do David start to be front in just one episode. We may see him at the end kind of thing, but I think we're going to get the beginning and the ending. I think we're going to get left behind kind of interspersed with our present day scenes, where I don't think it's going to be I think it's going to be like 95% left behind with 5% in the present day, but I still think we're going to get that bit of back and forth. And then obviously we go into winter for episode 8 and then the finale for episode 9. But Court, are you of the mind that we are not going to get present day next week, or it's going to be all flashback, or do you think we're going to get both?
Episode 7, because it doesn't matter that the names of the episodes are out there, so we can do it better this. So the episode is called Left Behind, and then episode 8 is when we are in need. We know how episode 8 ends.
Yep.
Okay, like I think we can all agree on how episode 8 ends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really what we're trying to figure out is how episode 7 ends,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we've come to the conclusion how it either begins. It's pretty simple. You mentioned the foreshadowing, so it's what is the ending part. Like I seem
True.
to think, and this is my only thought, I seem to think is you end it with Ellie in the like she does a Left Behind thing, and when Left Behind ends, it's Ellie in the garage with him and the horse. And the horse's name, by the way, I didn't know this, but I was watching something and they showed that the horse that she meets in Jackson is the horse
Shimmer.
from Shimmer is
Yeah.
from episode 2. So I was like, oh, but as we know about that horse, don't get so attached to it.
Oh dang!
So,
snap.
so are you saying? So you're saying that we're still going to get all left behind, and then we're going to end back in the present day. That's kind of
yeah,
your.
I think
Okay.
based on what you said, because so far you've been right a lot. If you're telling me we get to meet David at the very beginning, okay, that makes sense. And then Left Behind is not short.
No.
So if we're gonna get Left Behind of her when she's going back, we're gonna end with her in the garage, and then everybody can breathe a sigh of relief, right?
Mhm.
And then you start the next episode of her with David,
Yeah, I think
and the
we're.
whole thing is David, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sean, what do you think? Where are we going next week?
I think Ellie tries to keep Joel entertained with a fake football game that she's now recently learned the rules, and she's gonna.
Jesus.
No, she is going to be hunting a deer, not a rabbit, because she doesn't know how to shoot anything yet. She sucks with a rifle. She doesn't know how to use a bow and arrow, or at least that's what we've seen so far. And I can see her try her best and not be able to do it, and really get down on her luck about this, knowing that Joel is like in her head counting on her. And I think there's something there that triggers the memory, the flashback to Left Behind, which, you know, like something where like maybe she hears a voice, like maybe just try again, or I don't know, something like that.
No, David.
Mhm.
I think David comes at, maybe she starts getting chased in near the end, but yeah, I think we get introduced to David near the end. I think this is
Yep.
more like a Henry and Sam, like
Yes.
semi
Yes, good
2
point.
episode
Okay.
arc, like not
Okay.
really, but like you need
Feel you.
you need more than one, and even if it's just a little bit, to your point, Matt, maybe it's like 95% here.
Mhm.
But I could see Left Behind, like I could go two ways. I could see us having like nothing and frustrating the heck out of the audience and just going like, you don't know anything. And this is just cut back however many years this was, and the whole thing is just her and Riley, Ellie and Riley. So
Okay.
I could see that too.
Seth?
But I don't want that. I want the
Nope.
deer.
You want
no,
the
I
deer.
want her on her own
Okay.
and acting as like just trying to like fend for herself. It's just like looking like, I guess it's just Ellie now. That's what this episode is going to open looking like. Like you're meant to believe Joel's gone and it's just her.
Okay. Seth, what is your? You look into your crystal ball. Tell me what's happening next week.
I think there's going to be a lot of. I don't think
Seth
the
is from the
Left
streets.
Behind.
Tell me
That's
about your
right.
balls.
I don't think that. I think there's going to be actually a lot of flashbacks. I think this is where we're going to see like a lot of sort of Ellie's backstory, not just Left Behind, because
Okay.
we get the the gym thing that
Yeah.
we saw
Well,
in the
true.
and we know that Ashley Johnson is probably
That's-
playing like her mother and stuff.
Mhm.
So I think we're literally going to see like Ellie's life leading up to that point.
Yes. Yep.
And how she got there. And I think to your point, Sean,
This is what we're
I
getting.
think right, American Dreams, court's holding up American Dreams. I think so. And I think that a big part of that, to Sean's point, is like that was probably the last time that Ellie felt truly desperate and on her own and left behind, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dude, you
And-
are so right that we're getting the birth story. We're getting the whole thing.
Ashley
The one thing
Johnson!
that's
Yeah.
Well, she's in it. We
that's
know
it.
she's in it,
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
That's
Yep.
Yep.
But
That's
that's
what
this.
that
That's
you
what
just
I'm
had that
saying.
moment when I went,
I
that's
think
what you
right,
just did 4
because
minutes later.
This is more. This is Left Behind, but like expanded. Like if you read this
Right.
comic, a fan of The Last of Us, I still say like,
Oh, dang.
Sean, when you come to Toronto, I'll just let you borrow this while you're here.
It's a must read.
It's a
I
must
should
read
have
for any
that.
Last
I
of
should
Us fan.
definitely have that.
Yeah, I got it off Amazon
I'll
for,
just
like-
steal it.
It's,
won't
I got it
borrow
off
it.
Amazon for $12. But
so
it,
I
it
actually-
expands on it.
So I wonder though, because I'm also thinking about like the viewing audience. I wonder if we don't end with David, but like a false hopeful note.
Yes.
Because I feel
Oh,
like
definitely.
Mhm.
the viewing
David's
audience
here to
will
help.
see.
Yep.
Yeah, David's
David,
here to
good guy.
help. It's totally fine, right? And yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking. We're gonna that'll
Definitely.
be like a ray of light at the
And that's
end
why
of
she
the
goes
episode.
back, like to get the medicine with David instead
Mhm.
of the
Right.
opposite of like getting it and walking away. She goes
Yep.
with David, and that's how he get David.
Yeah.
David, he gets
yeah,
her.
yeah. David is David things.
David bad.
David.
I-
Oh, we get
David.
Troy Barker next. We get the whole cast next episode. We get Ellie and
That's
Joel next
true.
We
episode.
may get Troy next
Yeah.
episode. Yeah.
With Troy's next episode.
Because he's part of David's like,
David's
crew,
crew.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what? Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
That's how
in
Troy
the-
comes in, and then Ashley Johnson. Ashley Johnson
Ashley
seemingly will
Johnson's the
be
mom.
Ellie's mom, which is amazing. So The
Perfect.
final massive spoiler warning here, because we are going to briefly talk about part 2, because we did get some we got some stuff here in this episode kind of leading us to part 2. So if you want to know absolutely nothing about where the next season is going to go for part 2 of the game, back out now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. But of course, I wanna have a quick convo, because like final spoiler warning, like that was Dina, right? Like that was Dina in the cafeteria, right?
Totally.
Well, it's
Dina.
already been, I put in our Discord. They kind of confirmed it after Sean put a joke, and then I was like, I gotta do some. I couldn't let it go.
The podcast,
because
right?
I thought it too. I like while we were watching the episode, I sent Sean a text with the giraffe, and then I was gonna send a picture of Dina, but I was like, all right, I'll let this one go. It's later on in the night. He's already turned his phone into ignore, like the silent thing. I'm like, okay, fine. But as soon as Sean put that in the Discord, I'm like, I'm gonna start Googling, and then there's this great Last of Us Twitter account that I guess they'd already listened to the podcast, and the podcast is already confirmed. They pretty much said, without saying it, that is Dina, and that they said that there was going to be a cameo that you're going to see real quick, and anybody who played the game is going to know it. And I think everybody has already been like, that's her.
Yep.
Like the actress she's too big of an actress just to be walking by the screen too. Like it's her.
And so like that, I got so giddy because like she like, especially because, you know, they referenced this in the podcast as well, talking about the show, but like, you know, there's a conversation in part 2 where they talk about, you know, Dina, the first time that she sees Ellie, and she's basically, they're having a conversation about how Ellie was like inhaling food and like stuffing jerky in her pockets. And Dina was looking at her being like, oh, who is this random string bean girl taking all the jerky? So like there's already references that they're building in. So they're basically retroactively going in and like, you know, pulling in part 2 now into part 1, taking, you know, from the better one and adding to the inferior one, you know, to round it out a little bit more.
We already went through this on the
like,
PlayStation Drive today. I just want to I'm not letting this go. We've already
Neither
made
am I.
that. Like, nope.
Anyways, but yeah, and then of course, like Court already talked about, we got Shimmer, which is, you know, her horse from the second one. Did anybody see anything else from part 2 that I'm missing out here? Because it was so cool to see Jackson early.
The landmarks in Jackson,
yep,
are the actual like so there was the new Rockstars did a great thing on where they just go through and the Easter eggs you can watch, like here's the 30 whatever Easter eggs. Every single storefront in Jackson are the exact same. The way they did the signs, everything.
The movie
for The Last of Us Part 2 when they walk down the street. Exact to a T. Every single one of them where the buildings were is exactly for part 2 as they walk through the streets. And even when Dina's having the snowball fight and such, that part is in this. It's sitting off to the side because they're building snowmen. The snowball fight area is there and everything. It's all in there. And they did the fan service of walking through Jackson was to a T. They didn't miss a beat.
And of course we got, you know, Joel talking about what would you want to do in, you know, after all this, the plot of land, the sheep. I was like, oh my God, Sean, hit me with the thoughts and feelings. I gotta hear where you're at.
And
man.
the astronaut.
The astronaut.
Listen,
Sally Ride.
I am loud. Oh, effing Sally Ride, man. Sally effing Ride. Look, my feelings on part 2 as a video game are well known at this point. As a video game, not as good as the first game. However, narratively, this thing packs a punch. And to see it here, and this is where hopefully people who listen to us a lot know that I will be fair in that I am stoked for season 2 and hopefully season 3. I really do hope they split it up into 2 things. I think it's obvious that where they could do that and how that could all work. But I was giddy to see this stuff, even though I don't like the second game as much as the first one. The lights and the room and the bar and the movie, like I actually think not only was it good for us as anybody who's played the second game, like, ooh, like we know this and they're treating us nicely. It feels like a nice cozy blanket. I think narratively it actually makes more sense too. Because it was pretty jarring when you go back and play the second game and it's like now there's a settlement and everything's like amazing and it makes more sense. It seems to gel a little bit more that they've already found this place and, you know, Tommy's there, Marie, like, and they just are going to be welcomed back there afterwards. They even say, you have a place here. And it's like, well, yeah, we know that that's where you're going to go. So I love to see it. And it almost tricked me into not playing Fire Emblem 3 Houses. I'm in a committed relationship with that game through to the end. I almost want to play the second one, and that's the power of this show, and I think that I'm not alone on that, to be honest with you.
Backtrackers?
Can you imagine? It's a little long for backtrackers.
Or we do a PlayStation Drive. Hey, when The Last of Us is over, we all go play the PC version first, then we play Last of Us Part 2.
And then we have an all-out. That's when the PlayStation Drive Civil War really begins.
Sean, I have to ask you a question. You originally said you probably were okay not playing the PC version. Now, after watching this, and you have that ultra-wide monitor you're looking at right now, are you going to play the PC version?
I can't make a commitment like this. I'm in a committed relationship right now with another video game, but I am tempted. Like that's, the temptation is there. I'm only human. I'm a warm-blooded man.
I'm just a caveman.
With a lizard brain. It's just such a special story. The premise of this world is just so wonderful. I love, this was as overt as the Easter eggs from the second game kind of spill into this one. But like I think it was just the last episode, like the themes of revenge and blind revenge. I think we're like those are starting to mix in together as well, which is great. And it makes sense. They're making this show in a world where we've had the entire story told as it is, where originally it was kind of pieced one and then after the other. So this makes sense. It just looks like they didn't go, well, just take the first script and just tell it as is. Like they have more information now to craft a better piece of art. And I'm so glad that they've done this. What an impossible task, as I think we've said. All of us who've played the game hold it in such high regard, and they're nailing it, man, with all of this little bit. So now we're gonna go back. We're looking to the future, but we're gonna look back in the next episode.
I just watched Back to the Future, but that's in my brain. That's all I could see. But there was an Easter egg that because they changed the years that the show takes place compared to the game, the posters in the little girl's room were Radiohead, the Bends, and Pearl Jam 10, because if you remember in Last of Us Part 2, there's Pearl Jam posters throughout the whole thing, right? But it's Lightning Bolt because that's the album that would have came out at the time. But it's Pearl Jam 10, Radiohead, and Kurt Cobain because it's the 90s, right? So the posters in the girl's room, and there's lyrics on the wall and all that. It's really cool.
So I want to give everybody one last opportunity to shout out anything else that we may have missed or that we didn't touch on. Seth, I'm going to go to you first. Closing thoughts on that episode 6. Kin.
Well, one thing I think we haven't really talked about is Tommy.
Yeah.
I think Tommy, like this was kind of that moment of like reunion with them. I really like the way, I think that is Gabriel Luna, the actor.
Yes.
Who plays him. I thought he was great. Like I love like the sort of like humanity that he brings to it. I love that sort of tender moment we do get, that conversation with him and Joel, where Joel sort of like lays it all out there. They have a total brother like fight in the bar essentially, and like a blow up moment again. And I just wanted to mention him. I just thought he was really, really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him.
Brother fights are way more to that, man. There's fists.
yeah.
Like that's a brother
Fair.
fight. I'm like, oh Jesus, that's a tame one.
Sean, closing thoughts. Hit me.
Tommy's wife is the star of the show. Maria is excellent, and I feel like I believed her edge more in this than the game. Actually, she just seemed like a bitchy wife in the game. Like it seemed like she had more at stake here. She had more of a backstory, even just a little bit of like what she is. What's your problem, Court? What's wrong with that? Like, just what's your deal? Just come on.
Are you guys just looking for a fight now? You make one comment, now all of a sudden we need to find a reason to fight.
I said it like as if it's offending him personally. Like,
no, it wasn't offending me. I was having fun with it. That's Jesus. Calm.
I just felt like it was more of a trope in the game. Let me be more specific. That it felt like more of a trope. Like, of course, the wife isn't going to agree with anything that the guy wants to do or any obligations he might have to his family. It's like now it's her family. Like it seemed more like it was written by a dude. Like kind of a thing.
Her with the loss too.
Totally.
Like her son Kevin, right?
Yeah, I just think I thought the choice there was excellent. She just seemed to carry that role much better, I would say, than a pretty generic kind of wifey character, and who evolved much better in the second game, by the way. But certainly not in the first game. It just seemed like she was there to be a hurdle, more of a plot device. But this seemed much better. Shout out. I don't know the actor's name, but
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say she's a Canadian actress as well, because I think I've seen her in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, she was awesome, man. It was really, and the way that they kind of like split up, you mentioned before, but split up Ellie and Joel to test their relationship. Like you kind of, they want them they want things their way. They have a certain way, and everybody does. So I just thought that was that's my only final thought there.
Just gonna shout her out. Her name is Rutina Wesley, and she's American. So I hate to break it to you.
American. Okay, I thought I'd seen her. What have you seen her in?
We have seen her in True Blood, Queen Sugar.
Oh, wow. True Blood. That's my wife and I watched a ton of that. That's it. That makes sense.
There you go. That's what you know.
But I was getting a lot of like, are they going to change part 2 and make Tommy more of a focal character? Because
makes sense.
They've changed so far, and they've changed it so far good for the better. Like they really have.
Put it on the box.
That was a sentence.
Put it on the box. Well, it would make more sense. It would make more like because he actually impacts the story the second game quite a lot.
Bit. Yeah,
But he basically just like shows up and goes like, "You're going this way now. This is what's happening." And then like, "Peace, I'm out." Like what?
Agreed.
So yeah, I think that they could actually do Tommy a little bit better in the second game. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have a kid in the second one. In the second season, that kid will be born.
100%.
Oh my
we will get a time skip, right? Court, final thoughts,
baby. Honestly, I just want more, and I'm actually pretty sad that next episode will be the last one I get to have this conversation with you guys because I got to go to Florida. But man, this has been a fan of a series. I can't believe I haven't watched a TV series in this long of a time and just been like, each episode's just getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly can't get over the fact of the amount of people that have messaged me about this, and the fact that my wife knows nothing. Like she just knows nothing. She's going in this blind, and I am not telling her anything. I love the fact that everybody, the office talk right now is The Last of Us.
Yeah, man.
And I remember when Game of Thrones was this conversation, and we all didn't know what was coming next, but the people that read the books did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's happening again where everybody is talking about this thing that I like so much, and they don't know what's happening next.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's my thoughts. Like it's just I'm still in awe of how big this game has become on TV right now.
I keep waiting for this show to slip up or to miss or to take a turn that doesn't feel warranted or to do something that, again, even a lot of the changes that we've spoken to make sense. They work. They contextualize things, or they make things better, or it's a different adaptation from what we're expecting. But it doesn't miss. This show, beat by beat, moment to moment, just has not had a bad part in it. Like the fact that the worst thing that we're talking about this past episode was how bad the dead rabbits looked is a testament to the story and to the thing. And even then, the characters that we had at the beginning, how fantastic they were and how hilarious they were, and just to show that there is moments of peace in this place. I'm so happy to continue having these conversations with you guys and to keep, the wait week to week is agonizing, and it's been so long, not since Game of Thrones have we had a show that really people have genuinely rallied around, and it's nice that it's The Last of Us. It's awesome to see these things, and I'm just so excited, and I'm so sad that we only have 3 episodes left, and it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years before we get the next season, because that's how things work nowadays. But what a ride it's been, and I'm excited to finish it out all together. Before we go, very quickly, Seth, if people want to see and hear more from you, could they do so?
Twitter, I'm not going to do the whole rigmarole. I thought about it.
Thank you,
I was
Seth.
thinking of
Seth's
it.
with you on this one. He is.
But I'm just going to, I'll save it for the Nintendo Drive, where you can find me here on Carpool Gaming at the Nintendo Drive and twitter.com/$2hero.
Sean?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. Also alongside Seth and Lockleth on the Nintendo Drive, and Brian Murford, the weatherman on the Moose, on the Xbox Drive as well. I just want to say one final thing, just to get the algorithm kind of going, because people are gonna be mad at me. This is the only video game story that can be done like this. There's nothing after this. It's too good.
There's nothing.
There's nothing else. So if you're waiting for something else to come along and be this, I'm sorry. This is it.
Get ready for the Knuckles TV show, buddy.
I think BioShock could almost come close, but I think you're right.
Don't 100%. Get me started on that.
Court, if people wanted to see and hear more of you,
can find me on the PlayStation Drive, or you can find me all over Carpool Gaming. You could just you could find
do whatever you want.
You know what I did?
I don't care anymore, man.
Drive? He asked this question on the PlayStation Drive, and I'm like, where you can find me? You can find me at 7:30 p.m. live on Carpool Gaming.
Exactly.
You're like Krusty the Clown. I just love it so much. It's like the veil is being lifted between off the show and on the show. It's like it's whatever.
Coming. That's like the Wizard of Oz. But as for me, you can find me at Matt_Silver Soul. This has been us, and this was The Last of Us. We'll see you next week. Peace. Boom.
Joel dies in part 2. What?